welcome to Returning, a podcast to return to yourself and the wisdom within. I'm so glad you're here with me. Thanks for returning. Today, I am really happy to share with you a conversation with my friend and artist of my oracle decks, or the last two, Katie Louise. Katie is an intuitive spiritual artist, and she's also the illustrator I collaborate with on my most recent oracle decks. So that's the Rose Oracle and the Healing Waters Oracle, which excitingly, as I record this, is being released into the world this week. In our conversation, we are diving deep into the vibrant worlds of creativity and intuition, which are my two favorite topics. I'm a really big believer that we are all creative, and we're also all intuitive. I think that both creativity and intuition come from the same place, but we kind of need to do the work to open ourselves up to receive our creativity and intuition. Some of us find it's second nature, and others it's just a little bit of an unlearning process in order to receive our creativity and intuition, to learn how to listen to the whispers of the wisdom within, to receive our inspiration and our guidance. And then, just as importantly, to really work on gathering the courage to actually act on both our creativity and our intuition. And I think this is why, for me, creativity and intuition and spirituality are really so intertwined. I see them being as like this endless invitation for us to trust the calls of our soul and to really show up to it with regular rhythm as well. I have really always believed that there are countless creative ideas that are waiting to be birthed. I believe that there are so many ideas and creative muses that are wanting to work with us and to speak through us. But we have to act and to keep saying yes and working on our craft in order to really share our creations with the world. So you're going to hear a really wonderful example of that today in my conversation with Katie. Really the power of saying yes and putting your soul calls into action in order to truly step into our highest calling and purpose. I love Katie, and I'm sure you will too. And at the end of this episode, as always, you'll find a guided soul inquiry for you to delve into your own creative ideas that are wanting to come through, and the connection of your intuition and your creativity. I know how precious your time is, so let's jump right in together by opening sacred space. In the center of your heart, imagine a beautiful flower. In the center of that flower, imagine a light. This light is your wise, intuitive self. It's the wisdom within. Invite that flower to open petal by petal now as you take a deep breath in and out, and invite your soul, the wisdom within, to really step forward now. And together take a moment to acknowledge the keepers and custodians of the land where you are and where I am, known and unknown. Beautiful. Let's begin. So our first project together was the Rose Oracle, and I don't know if I've shared this before, but I got the download of it needed to be Rose. I actually had two different decks that I was contracted for.
Yeah.
And then COVID happened and I moved to Glastonbury, and I mean in the Rose Oracle guidebook I tell the story about the Rose House and all of that. That's a whole other story. I won't go into that now. But the rose became so evident. And I look back and it had been such a big part of my journey. Like I wrote about it in my first book of like going to Regent's Park, and the rose really was like one of my first like creative muses, I would say. But it wasn't until I got the real clear guidance that of doing an oracle that I realized how steeped in mystery and symbolism the rose was. And I remember putting out this like deep, deep heart call for the right person, the right artist to come in. And, you know, you kind of want it, just like any kind of relationship, you want it to happen now. And it was such a journey for us to actually meet. And I don't even know if I've told you this, but I around the same time, I'd be journaling every morning and trying to not let my Aries moon take over and, you know, be like, right, let's just do it now. And I was like, no, I need to wait. And one morning I got this guidance to connect with someone who was like a peer, a friend, but like not someone who's I'm super close with, but have a very deep connection with. And I look back at when I feel into her, she's definitely a sister of the rose for sure. And we both got onto Zoom. It was during COVID, and straight after she shared your artwork, and it was just on Instagram, like in a story. And I got this big like, whoa, that's who. I don't know if I've ever told you that. And I think I reached out for you to do a sample then. But yeah, that's kind of like how it came, but it was like about 6 months waiting for you to arrive. What's your memory of like the rose? What was the call of the rose for you? And her showing up as a muse, and you and I beginning to work together.
Yeah, so it was an interesting journey really, and the rose really presented herself as a result of so much deep healing on my feminine energy. I'd been on a real journey up until there was this moment where I realized that I had this real connection with the rose, and she was such a powerful healer for me. And I actually took myself off to Holland in the middle of nowhere, and I participated in a ceremony, a plant medicine ceremony. And in that ceremony, in the room, there was a big statue of Mother Mary, and there were some roses by her. And I put my hand up to one of the guides, and I was like, please, please, can I have Mary with me? Can you bring her over? And the rose, can I have that? And this lovely lady was like, oh, of course you can, of course. So brought them over, and then I clung on to this rose in this ceremony where I cried for hours. It must have been about 16 hours, and I'd got this rose, and I really nurtured it and tended to it, and it was with me, and then I kept putting it into my water bottle that I was drinking it from, to make sure it would stay alive, and it was, and I really had this connection. And at the time, I don't think I was really aware of what was happening or what was going on, but I built this relationship with the rose and with Mother Mary at the time. And from there, the rose, just every time I was doing deep work on myself, the rose would be there. I started buying myself roses, and it was all roses, and it just became so important. But it was when I was doing deep healing on my feminine energy. I'd been on a real journey, and my feminine energy was just in tatters. I had a lot of work to do. And then so I started doing this work. That was in 2015. So there was a good 5 years of this kind of work before you dropped in. And then that was a place where I was like, I was well along my journey. I'd grown a lot. And at the start of that year, we came into lockdown. I was a flight attendant, but I was also like, I was a closet spiritual witch on the side, being very shamanic at home and doing all my little things, but I was still flying. And I got grounded from flying, and I was like, I'm going to bring my visions into the world, and I'm going to make an oracle deck at some point. And I just put it out there into the universe, and it was just with so much pure intention and love. And there was a rose with me at that time, and I let it go into the universe. And then it was by the end of that year, you DM'd me and it just was meant to be. It was the right timing. It was like when I'd done enough work, you know, at that point, that divine timing. So yeah, that was the point.
It's so interesting, isn't it? Because yeah, I remember finding this one piece of your artwork, and because I was like, I really want to physicalize nature, but in a way where like the codes of nature would be shown. So it's not just, you know, often the earthy stuff is like quite and not that I like this as well, but in the way I saw my vision was that it was like you'd show the light that's in the earth, you know, and so it's like as above, so below kind of thing. And that's what I saw in your work. And I remember looking back and being like, I think I scrolled back on your Instagram, and I think when I first began, you weren't really sharing on Instagram.
No, I wasn't.
So it was like that. I just thought that was really interesting because it's like, you know, I think when we are being called to share our creations or whatever it is, follow our intuition in a way, we can feel like we need to wait until we've got it all sorted, we're ready. But the thing, particularly with the creative artist, and when I say artist, I'm not just talking, you know, a painter or a digital artist. I'm talking about just like anyone who's sharing their creations in the world. The way to work on your craft is by doing. And, you know, at first, like, it's going to be a bit clunky and maybe not so great. I know my writing wasn't. But then the more you show up day after day after day after day, the more like spirit works through us and with us. And this unique style begins to emerge. And it's been amazing seeing your journey and how like devoted you are to honoring that call and honoring the alignment. And yeah, it's been amazing.
I was just going to say, like, when I first started, I had this thing about I was scared to share. I was scared to share like anything. So I would always hold back. And then when you messaged me, it kind of, I had to step up. So it was good for me because then I was like out of my head and I had to trust and I had to allow. So it was interesting.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, and it's interesting because I think one of the reasons I love working on Oracle decks is that it's like you can dive into a subject area and working with a particular energy, and you're kind of like flexing and working out around it. So it's not like you're working for this one final execution. It's like doing a whole mood board and just exploring. It's like a deep dive, like a master's in a particular subject area. Do you agree?
Yeah, definitely. Like, to begin with, you just think it's this, you know, it's just this one thing, and then it just expands out and it just gets bigger and bigger, and there's more. There's always more. I mean, I know that when we do stuff, there's just always more, and there has to be a point where we're like, okay, we need to stop now, or otherwise we could just go on forever. But it opens up so much more, and it's so much bigger than you initially think. You know, it's massive.
It's so true. Like when I reflect, because do you remember we just finished with Rose, and I was in Australia, and I'd been working on the mystery school in Australia, and water actually came in as one of the mysteries I was working on, and I just knew it was an oracle. And I know how, like, you know, in congruence with like alignment and connecting with the muse that you are, and so I remember like reaching out to you going, hey, this is what I'm getting next. Would you be open to looking at, like, feeling into if it's right for you? And you were like, Rebecca, the water has been here the whole time. And even like, I remember near the end of Rose, there was just so much water that started emerging. And so it was like, I often find that with creative projects or even my books. I remember my first book, Light is the New Black, the very last thing I wrote was this poem called Rise, Sister, Rise. It ended up going into that book. But I remember saying to my editor, hey, what about if the book is called Rise, Sister, Rise instead of what the first book was called? And she's like, no. That's your next book. That's not this book. I was like, oh. And so I don't know if that's been the case for you as well, where it's like the energies kind of like merge and then it's like
a relay baton or something.
Yeah, definitely. It's like it starts coming in while you're doing the other thing, and it starts coming in, and then it's like, oh, of course that has came in, like because it was already coming in, and then something else will come in, and they kind of like weave together. And I think part of that is, like everything is connected, and it is all one. So of course there's going to be these, the overlap, but it's like it presents itself, and it's like, oh, I'm next. Look at me next. Create, like, work with me next. But the water's definitely started coming in with the rose. Definitely.
Oh my gosh, totally. And did you prefer, like, personally, not necessarily like creatively, but personally, did you prefer working with the rose or the water? They were both pretty intense, weren't they?
They were so intense. They were so intense, but in very different ways. The rose was it was so feminine, and it was, like it was, but it was also, there was a lot of softness, and it was, I was in a deep process still with, that feminine embodiment. And even though it was difficult still, I think it was easier because the rose is like a tangible object, like it's an object. So when we started the water, I don't think that I comprehended how massive water was, and you couldn't contain it. It was flowing. It was so big that the process of working with the water as well, because, well, when I create artwork, I really live and breathe every single card, and I really go through each card and really feel into that. So the waters just came along, and it was just like, it just washed everything, it was like a tsunami. And I was like, what is going on? This is really difficult. But I'm really grateful for that, because again, it's really made me embodied further into my humanness. And that has been really beautiful with the water. Well, both of them, but it's like the water was another level. The water was a lot.
It was so intense. Yeah, I totally agree. Well, I was pregnant for the bulk of us doing it. Well, I was pregnant and I had miscarriage, and then I was pregnant again. And so I kind of like really at that level of like, I mean, when Sonny was born, he was born, as you know, in his little water sack. And we've got that card, N-call, which is an N-call birth, like basically a baby born, in a water sack. And when I saw that, I was like, oh my gosh, we really do come from water. And then you go, oh my gosh, we are water beings. This is a water planet. This is what the, like, maybe water is God, like, or goddess, or the intelligence, or what. It just blows your mind. And I think that in itself is, because it's where there is water, there is life. Where there is life, there is water. Without water, there is no life. So, I mean, even from a scientific point of view, like, I'm like, whoa, what is water really, and then from a metaphysic point of view, of course, then that just blows your mind. But what I think so interesting about water as well is that it's obviously, like, in the condition that the planet's in right now, like, we're finally waking up to like how urgently we need to recognize how sacred this element is. But then if we are able to see the fact that water is sacred, because life is sacred, and that life isn't here without water, then we will see absolutely everything as sacred, from the plants to trees to animals to everything on this planet that is alive. And so I think that what blows my mind about when you are working with water is that, in one way, when you're working with water, you're working with everything in life. Yeah. And I think that's the hardest bit. And then it's an element that has so many different forms too. So it's in flowing water, it's in stagnant water, it's in ice, it's in mist, it's in the air, it's in our bodies, it's in the food we eat, it's everything. Everywhere.
everything. You know, it was interesting when I was working with the water. I went through a real process with the water, and at the end of the water, I had a whole new awakening on another level, which was that everything, and a lot of psychic gifts came online, but in a very new way. And it was through the process of working with the water, and because of that everything and that consciousness, I'd obviously tapped in so deeply. It literally blew me open so far, and to the everything, you know, everything. And it was really big, and that definitely came along with working with the waters, definitely. My sister was pregnant while we were doing the waters.
That's
as well.
Right.
So yeah,
I know. I saw a picture of your nephew or niece. I forget which one.
Niece.
So gorgeous. So gorgeous.
Yeah, both of you at the same
gosh.
time. So it was interesting as well.
So interesting.
The birthing.
Yeah, having that all around you. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think like some of my favorite memories of us through our creative process, well, there's two which I find the funniest, actually. First one was like all of those meetings that we'd have, like when you were like during COVID in particular, like on standby, and you were in like truck shops channeling the artwork, and I'm like, this is the vision I'm getting, and you're like, just one sec, I just need to go to this like plastic table or to my car, there's a trucker who's wanting to come up.
Yeah. This is it though, because you know the thing is like a lot of my downloads are when I'm on the move, when I'm moving somewhere, and I have a lot when I'm driving. Like a lot of stuff comes through, or you know, when I'm going from A to B to somewhere, things drop in at those times, and I'm like, oh, you know, I need to write these down. But that was really funny, the trucker day when I was in a service station, and you were
funny.
You were chanting and then singing and everything, and I was like, oh, I get it.
Oh
Hang
my
on.
God, was that same day? I didn't know you were at a truck station that day. That's hilarious. That's all right, because we couldn't get one of the cards. I can't remember which one it was, and I'm like, I just got out of my meditation, and I got this chant or something, and so I recorded it, and then I sang it to you, and you were like, got the codes, and then you did it, and it was amazing.
I got it, and that actually came in a motorway service station car park. That's where it came through. But you know, this is the thing, like the magic is everywhere, and it's like it's everywhere in our humanness. That magic is there, and it's like when you tapped in, you can access it in these places. You know, so the service stations.
Love it. Yeah, I really resonate with that on the move thing. I've always done my best like writing like on my phone as I'm walking in nature.
Same.
Even as a kid, I remember like being on the bus. I had to ride the bus. This is like at school, and I'd have like my little Walkman in my Sony Ericsson Walkman, listening to like ABBA tapes, like Muriel's Wedding, Priscilla Queen of the Desert, that kind of thing. And I was thinking we used to do these performances that were called like Becky's Dance Group, and we'd like, it was kind of sister act meets Priscilla Queen of the Desert, like Catholic schoolgirl, rip off your uniform into costume change. And we'd like lip sync and stuff, but took it very, very seriously. And I remember I'd be listening to these and I'm like, yes, this song goes into this song. But I'd always get it sitting on the bus, looking out the window. And even when I was a creative in advertising, I'd walk. This was my first time consciously connecting with water. I didn't see it as intelligent at that point. I saw it more as like inspiration, like from shapes and colors and everything. But I'd walk along the beach each morning, and that's when I'd receive my ideas for work for the day. And then I'd go into work and just like do my time at the cubicle at the office just to be seen like I'm doing my work. But really I did my work walking with the water every morning. I think the motion for me really helps, because it's like you're not stagnant. You're kind of like, you're almost like dancing with life a bit.
Yes. Yeah, that is it. Movement.
And did you, so I know it's like such a journey to kind of claim the calling of, you know, and just choosing a title, and a title never is like the title. But for me, I was like, I need to write a book, because then at least I can call myself an author, because I don't know what the heck to call myself. I remember that being a big point in my journey. And I know that like one of the many hats you wear is like intuitive artist. How was that to like claim that? Like, was that hard for you to say that you were that, or has that been something that's come easy?
I think it has been difficult for me to claim it. It's been a real journey to become embodied and actually claim, like really claim and be seen. And I was uncomfortable at first, and I have been hiding behind my art, and it's like, it's just pictures, and hiding parts of myself, like my humanness, my humor, and it was uncomfortable for me, but now I'm a lot more comfortable with it, because I am very intuitive. I've always been very intuitive, and honestly, truthfully, sometimes when I create something, I don't know how I know. I don't know how I know that thing, or I don't know where it's come from, but I know that it's come from somewhere, like wisdom that is within me that I've tapped into from, somewhere else in the consciousness. And I was uncomfortable like saying that for a long time, but then now I'm a lot more, I am very intuitive. I am very empathetic. I do get downloads, and it's safe for me to claim that because I know myself. Whereas at the start, I didn't trust myself as much,
It's interesting, because I think there's like trains of thought where it's like, it's about, no, I'm an artist, or I'm a this, meaning like, it's like, this is my particular gift. But then you can also look at it and be like, oh, whoa, like what if actually we're all intuitive, we're all artists?
Yeah, we are.
And I actually believe that's true, but we've just forgotten. But then I do think that the more, obviously, like each of us have a specific unique strand of gift, right? But I think also the more we show up to what I would say, like merge with the divine or the sacred, and let it move through us, there's different ways it can express through us. And I think that can, it's a combination of like soul experience as well as life experience, ancestral, blah, 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 all of that. But it's also just like the more we show up to our craft, the more refined the skills get. So it's kind of like a combo of it all. And I know for me, the more I've shown up, because I was like so scared to do it, and but claiming the title and all of that is like such a big thing. It's like you think you're really weird, and but like I think that the more we do something, the easier it gets, and then it doesn't. From my experience, it's not like the fear goes away completely, but it does become easier.
Yeah, it's almost like you get more comfortable. You get more comfortable with it because you're showing up more, definitely, and I think sometimes it's hard to give yourself a title because there's also so many other things, like there's so many other things. And, I channel in other ways as well. So like when I dance or when I play sound, that is a channel also where I'm getting information. And I think as well, it's like creativity and expression. In that format, there's access to that information of being a channel, and but I've got more comfortable with it as I've dedicated more time, and it's just become more of a natural thing.
So true. And yeah, you're so right. Like I really see the connection between sound and visual, like holding the frequency, and that's one of the things I just love about your art in particular. You can feel the codes are in there, and like was there like a one significant moment that kind of like sparked something on your journey? I know the awakening process never ends and there's like heaps of them, but like, was there one first one or one significant one, or is that hard to pinpoint?
It's really hard to pinpoint, but I was always very expressive and creative, like as a child, and then I had this boyfriend in my early 20s, and I used to write a lot. Like I used to write poetry a lot, and I wrote him like some kind of poem. You know, this is like in my early 20s, and there was a painting, and he was awful. He was an awful person, and one day he'd torn up this painting, like, and I was devastated, and I stopped creating, and for years I stopped creating, and then it was I became so sad in life because I wasn't being creative at all, and life became very painful after this relationship, and I wanted to leave life because I was so sensitive, and it was so painful for me to be in this human experience. And that was definitely the moment where life had become so painful for me that I actually wanted to check out of life. And that was when things changed. That was when the healing came and the real work, because I had no other choice. There was no other choice for me apart from do whatever it takes to heal. So as I healed, the creativity came back, and the creativity just gave me so much joy. It reminded me of that play, and it reconnected me to nature. It reconnected me back to myself and back to life. And it's all about connection. And it was a really long journey, but that awakening moment was definitely where I got to a point where I wanted to leave life, and that was the awakening, and I think that, it's sad because I think sometimes the deeply traumatic things are the things that are the awakening. But I'm so grateful for it. I'm so grateful for it, and it has shaped me and made me who I am. And it's brought so much light into my life. From going to my darkest dark, it rebirthed me into my brightest light, and that was the awakening. The fragility of life, that for me was the awakening. And then things have just carried on. There's been more awakenings since then. Some of them have been funny, some of them have been really funny, and it's ever unfolding. And every time I think I've got it, and there's something else, and I'm like, what? I'm just a student. I'm always learning. I'm never going to know all the answers. There's so much mystery. How can we know it all? But yeah,
so true.
Yeah, I think like that time in my life, it has took me back on a journey to remembering that curious child that I was growing up. The one that was interested in the magic and the mystery and the hows and the whys, and knowing that there's something else out there.
And like, so for someone, or if you were even just like talking to yourself back then from now, like what would you say?
Just never stop being curious and never stop playing. Just stay curious. It's okay to be curious. It's okay to ask questions. Like, it's okay to try things out and take a risk, and just adventure, just have fun. I think a lot of it goes back to that sense of play, play and create, and just find things out, go on that adventure.
And I know that you've got a very special man in your life
he's here.
His name is, would you like to introduce him to everyone?
He's here. He's ready and waiting.
And so tell me about your main man, Philbert.
This is Filbert, and he accompanies
Chihuahua.
me. Yeah, he's a Chihuahua. He's accompanied me in all of the work that we've done on the oracles, and he really has been he's been my best friend. He's a source of absolute unconditional love for me, and at times when I feel like disconnected from myself, he brings me back. He takes, because I had him and he wants to go walking, I'm always in nature with him, and it makes him happy. So I'll take him, and we just spend a lot of our time in nature. But yeah, the unconditional love from this, he's really happy to be on camera. He's
so sweet. Hey, Philbert. Yeah, Philbert has been there. He is. We should probably credit him in the deck. We should.
Yeah.
Thank you, Philbert.
Thank you.
But yeah, I've been on many a walk in nature in the forest with Philbert, haven't I?
Yeah, he's always there. He's always, he sits with me when I'm doing the artwork. He likes to be involved. He's so always good. There.
Well, my dog Shakti used to sit on my lap or on my desk when I wrote, and then my husband Craig, who he started. Well, it was when I had my son, because all of a sudden I had to feed my son through the night, and so the baby, Shakti, my dog, kind of went down in pecking order, and I had to go, and feed the baby because and so then when that happened, Shakti became Craig's baby, and now literally is it's a different task. So his calling is to be Craig's support, not mine, in his work.
It's so interesting. It's so interesting how that's happened.
Yeah, it's so true. And I, hearing you talk about Philbert and also the joy, because I was thinking about Philbert when you were talking about the joy and playing and being curious and going on adventures and stuff. And this is quite funny. When Craig and I were in London, we'd been working really hard, and I think we'd been married a couple of years, and we started doing the wheel of life, when you look at the different sections of your life, and you rate it out of 10. So we're work and 8 out of 10, body 6 out of whatever it is. And we kept on, both of us, we'd go onto fun or play, and we were 2. We're oh wow. My God, because we went from kind of what we were doing for fun was going to nice restaurants and drinking and all of that kind of stuff, and then we didn't want to do that anymore, and work was such a passion. I think when your work is your passion, it's hard to I sometimes go what do I even do for fun, because I love what I do so much that I have to think about having fun. And I think since I've had kids, that has become a lot easier because kids just play. But we for weeks kept on getting real low scores for fun. And so, and Craig said, I know what we need to do. We need to get a puppy. And that's what we did. Literally the next week we found Shakti. We went to Milton Keynes and picked her up. And she's been with us ever since.
Yeah, do you know what? There's been times where obviously we've been creating, and it's got a little bit hard at times when we're doing the oracles. It's a lot of work, and Philbert's he brings me joy. He will tap at me, and he's like, it's okay, take a break, let's go for a walk, or he'll bring a toy over, and he reminds me to play, and he reminds me, come on, let's get out in nature and have a little explore. And but they pull you back into that moment of fun and play, and it's so important.
So true. And I know this because I've witnessed your process and my own as well. What I think is amazing is sometimes when you're I'm really trying to get this card or this chapter or whatever it is, and you're kind of pushing for it, and then it always comes in an instant, but you might have to be sitting there for 20 hours and then it will come in 30 seconds or something.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
It's really frustrating when you're trying. But it's like anything. It's a metaphor in life, because when you're trying so hard with something, it just doesn't come. It's like when, you know, like when you're waiting for a bus and there's none, and then they all come together. But it's really frustrating. And at first I got so frustrated with it. I mean, the amount of tears that I've cried while I've been making, you know, or I've like got angry, I've screamed into the pillow every now and again, and or you know, I have to have a word with myself, and I'm like, do you know what? It's just not gonna. I need to let it go. I need to let it go and do something else and take a break from that, because it clearly doesn't want to come through in the way that I want it to. I want it to come through. I think it's like when you're trying to control it too much, what comes through, or you really want that moment of inspiration, but it's like it's not in that moment that you think it's going to be in. So it's like I've got a lot better at, right, I'll take a break from this. But there has been times where I've sat for hours, and I've just stared into nothing, into nothingness, and like waiting, and I'm just staring, and it's like before I know it, it's a whole day has gone. Sometimes it's been a whole week where it's like nothing's come, and it's really frustrating. But then all of a sudden it will come, and it will be quick, and it's like, here it is. But those times are frustrating.
It's so like receiving intuition or guidance, like you want to get it now, you want something to, or even manifesting, you want it to happen now, but like it really requires surrender and trust, doesn't it?
Massively.
But I think it's interesting, because I think also at the same time a creative, because it's always limitless, and creative ideas are like exponential, we need containers to create inside too, and deadlines actually help us do that. But
definitely,
when I worked as a creative in advertising, I keep referring to that because it's like a corporate, well, it's a set finite container more than I've ever done. And I think that was such good training for me, because I like saw how it's like it was so hard to trust the creative process, because you knew there was this end cliff. But it forced me to learn how to act on creations when they came. And I swear, no matter who the creative was, you'd always get your best ideas right at the beginning, the moment you got the creative brief. Like it'd just be like, boom, 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 like that. And then right at the end, like literally like the last 5 seconds right before you're about to present. And everything in between was just like time.
Yeah, do you know what? That is so true. And I've had to learn a lot of trust. Like in this, because you're right. A lot of that middle time, definitely with the water was like, there was a lot of space. There was a lot of space, and then it was quick, and it was like, whoa, like, you know, it was like a tsunami. It all came in, all the downloads came all in one go, and, you know, all nearer to the end. But I've got a lot better at trusting and knowing that it's going to come. It's going to come. But I love having the deadline, because otherwise it would just go on forever. It would be limitless.
And it's so interesting, because I think I found this, because water is one of the mysteries in the mystery school. And so, but you and I started working on it before I had started teaching like the big groups. And so I'd only experienced it directly. I hadn't observed other people working with it, and we do like altar work and things like that in the mystery school. But it was so helpful, you and I having worked with altar. So like not just me, like you and I, both of us doing water, and then a couple of people on my team were working with it as well in that same way, just to try and like figure it out. And I just kept on being like, I don't understand, like altar work is such a huge part of my practice. I find it really grounding to bring it into the physical. I know you're an amazing altar builder, but it was actually a conversation that you and I had. Like I was saying to you, I think I sent you the little chalice well vial pendant, and so we both had that, and and then there was like maybe a stone, a crystal
Some
or something. So we had a
stones.
couple of things. Yeah, exactly. And you'd visited the chalice well as well. And so we'd had a couple of like physical experiences, but I was really struggling to have an altar devoted to water. And I remember you saying to me, I think it's because water just wants to flow. It doesn't want to be stagnant. Because I would have like, I've got these little vases of my grandma's that I'd put in, but I'd have to like change the water every day. And I just struggled with it. Whereas when I wore the pendant, or I'd walk to the well and walk with the waters in that way, or observe the waters as moving, living things, I was able to connect so much more.
Yeah, same. It was a big realization, the altar, because I tried to build the altar as well. And I remember saying to you that, because I was just like, my altar just feels like really like stagnant.
Yeah, it was like dead. We're like, oh.
It was like with the rose, it was always really beautiful because there was always lovely roses on there, and it looked alive. But the water, it just felt stagnant. And I was like, hey, Rebecca, I think it just wants to flow. And I remember that conversation, and it felt better as soon as we, like acknowledged. And it's interesting.
So interesting. Whew. All right. So, okay, I have two questions for you as we finish up. First one is, what does the sacred mean to you? Or how would you define the sacred?
See, this has changed very recently after a new awakening, but for me now, the sacred is this life. It is this body. It is nature. But life, like just life, being here in this body, and nature, like how that is so sacred. You can't get anything more sacred. That to me is like, what a gift, what a beautiful sacred gift to be here now, this breath, this body, and all of the nature. It's everything. It's everything and beyond, like this lifetime now and beyond.
Beautiful. And what returns you to the wisdom within?
So many things, but being in nature is huge for me. Being out in nature, and music is very important to me. I create all of the artwork to music. Sound and music is where I create to, and I think being creative returns me, that is the big thing, being creative in this life. But the inspirations are nature. Nature's such a big inspiration, and it's like a combination of those things. And I think the reason is because those things make me feel connection to life, and connection to myself, and having that relationship with life, with nature, with music, sound, my creativity, that returns me to that infinite love,
Love it. Well, we Katie and I have like working playlists that we work with. I'll make sure we include the Rose and the Healing Waters one along in the show notes, so you can listen along. So many of those songs, I think, like we've listened to, like Mother of the Waters, like I reckon, what do you reckon, like 500 times?
so many, like some of these songs have been on repeat. So many.
So what I thought that we would do is, just to wrap things up, let's pull an oracle card. I'm just going to grab the deck behind me. We'll pull one from Healing Waters.
Okay, perfect.
Because today, the day that this episode is going to be released, is actually the birthday of Healing Waters. Yeah. 27th of June 2023. So maybe you're listening from the future, or maybe you're listening in the present. Oh, and I'll include a link below as well where you can get there's like the the healing waters if you want to get the deck and activate your deck and receive the attunement, as well as the playlist and all of that. You can do that. Okay. I'm going to pull us a card now.
Yeah.
Had a couple of jumpers. I'm going to do it again. The Selkie card. So this is come out of hiding, embrace who you really are.
There we go.
This is, I think it's a very apt card for the for our conversation today. And then the other two that jumped out before are the Well Maidens and Planetary Wave. For me, Well Maidens really reminds me of it is about reverence to the waters, compassion, respect, and kindness. But to me, it's the Avalon card. It's the sacred wells of this world, like the pure waters, and us as guardians of the waters as well. How about you, Katie?
Just the same, you know, that deep reverence that we're guardians of the water, of nature. Like, it's up to us to honor, protect, and be in deep reverence with this earth, you know, and all of her magic and gifts. But it's a very, like, that feels a very feminine card to me as well, you know. But it's being in reverence with the lands and being in reverence with ourselves, you know, our humanness and the entirety of it all, you know.
Beautiful. And like a percentage of all of the profits of the oracle also go to charity water. I'll include info with the show notes too. So that'll happen automatically, but it's a great charity if anyone feels like called to support it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing us about your journey, about your process. And I'm very grateful. And I'm
so grateful
what we're creating together.
So grateful. Thank you.
Soul inquiry is a practice where we enter into a direct dialogue with our inner self. I like to write my answers down in a journal, as I find that I receive them more deeply that way, but feel free to do what works for you. Today's soul inquiry prompt is: what creations are wanting to be birthed through you? What creations are wanting to be birthed through you? What creations are wanting to be birthed through you? And now it's time to commit to a grounded action. So writing down, what is one baby step you can take in that direction? What is one baby step you can take in that direction? Let's share a deep breath together as we close this sacred space we've stepped into together. I'm so grateful for you being here. If you'd like to keep returning to yourself and returning here with me, then hit subscribe. And you can find all of my oracle decks, including the Healing Waters Oracle that we shared today, in the show notes over at rebeccacampbell.me/podcast. And if you'd like to order the Healing Waters Oracle, it's such a beautiful oracle. You can find out more at rebeccacampbell.me/healing waters. Do you hear the call of nature? Are you endlessly curious about life's big questions? Are you longing to deepen your relationship with the sacred pulse of life? If so, come and explore the Inner Temple Mystery School training. It's an accredited 9-month training for mystics, artists, intuitives, and healers. Come over and check it out at rebeccacampbell.me/mystery school.